Okay, we have the Deerc 9201e on the workbench now, and in this session we're going to work on the shocks. As I said in the previous video, I actually replaced the shocks on here. However, to me they're a little stiff. They're much better than the shocks on these cars, like this one. This is the Holyton version of the same car. You see how it bounces? And this one, these are the original shocks. And so they're extremely loose and bouncy. And I actually took them apart and tried to put some oil in them, and it didn't make a difference. I took it all the way apart and found out that these shocks, even though I think they say they're oil shocks, however, they don't have true shock absorber plungers inside. They have screws, and the oil just lubricates the shaft, but it doesn't have any shock absorber action. So put that back, and the way I like my shocks to work, I like on this car. This is the HBX, and I'm trying to remember all these names, 2997A. So this is a more expensive car, and the way this shocks work, they absorb the shocks like they're supposed to, but there's still no bounce. However, they're soft, and so I prefer mine to be more like that. And we're gonna work on it and see if we can get that done. Okay, so we're going to start on the rear shocks here, and go ahead and take the shocks apart with our number 1 screwdriver, and we're going to start with this left rear shock. Alright, so as you can see, these are metal shocks through and through. Very good quality shocks, in my opinion, for very good inexpensive shocks. The sky's the limit on these things. If you got some shocks for like Armas or shocks for Traxxas, you're going to pay a lot more for these. Okay, so I am preparing to make a mess here. So I got my paper towels and my cardboard pad here, and I purchased 2 oils some time ago. I got some 350 weight and some 600 weight. I have no idea what these are going to do inside this shock, so this is an experiment on my part, and it's a really good possibility that these might be not the best oils or that are wrong, and this shock will be out of balance with the rest of them. So hopefully it works well and I can do all of them and we'll notice a difference. Alright, so to take the shock apart, the first thing you do is you gotta compress it here, move that down. Let's see, this should come off with a little effort, some effort. There we go. Spring comes off. And I have the springs from the old one. These are softer springs than the springs on there, so I think that's better. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the top off, if I can. And there it comes. And we're going to see what's on the inside. Alright, there we go. And there's the oil. It looks pretty thick. Look at that. I'm going to hold it so you all can see it. It's going to ooze out all over the place. But let's see. Oh, it's not that much in there. And so the shock absorber action is actually still working quite well, even with it off. I mean, I'm actually putting effort into it to move the piston back and forth, so it's working really well. So I am going to depress it and see how much comes out. And just that comes out. It's not much. So I'm going to wipe that out. I'm gonna work it. See if I get the rest of it out. I'm considering taking this bottom part off as well and working from there because I'm still getting some good shock absorber action, but I want to get all that out. So I'm going to take this off. Anybody who's a veteran at this might be saying, man, he does not know what he's doing. And actually, this is a discovery. Remember, this channel is about learning by doing. And I'm trying to make things basic because this channel is actually for youth. I want to encourage youth to work with their hands and explore things and not be afraid to get your fingers dirty and learn. And even if you mess something up, you still learn. So this still has some strong shock absorber action even with the oil out, so that's pretty interesting. So let's take it all the way out. Maybe it doesn't come all the way out. It's not coming out. Let's see. Interesting. Still has some good shock absorber action. But that's all of it, the oil that's coming out. I'm going to let it pour out here, so I'm going to pause the video and we'll see what happens. Okay, so this is where we are. I took the other rear shock off and I wanted to compare it to this shock. So it's stiff and it takes its time at recovering, which is what you want in a shock, but to me that's too stiff. This one, I actually poured out this much oil. It's a good amount of oil that came out of there. I just let it seep out and it came out. However, what's a little surprising to me is that it still has a shock absorber action. Now it's a difference between the two. This one is lighter like I wanted it to be. But guess what? It doesn't have any oil in it at all. I poured it all out. And it still has a damping action. You can kind of tell. But it's got no oil in it. This one has the oil in it and it's much stiffer. But I'm surprised it still has any damping action at all. Even with no oil. So that tells me what's dampening it is probably the tightness of the rubber seal. That's my guess. So if anyone is experienced with this, let me know. So I got to decide, should I just go ahead and put the lightweight oil in there or just leave it like that and let the seal wear out, or I don't know, but I like it the way it is with no oil. So I'm going to put some oil in it and see what happens. Okay, folks, I decided to go all the way down the rabbit hole and take the shock totally apart. So, the shock has the shaft here, and you see this is threaded right here, if you could focus on here, and the shaft goes into the body, and at the end of the shaft is this plunger. And the plunger has cuts into it, I assume to allow the oil to go through. And it has this nut that goes on the end that secures it right there. See, so I took the nut off with my little teeny nut driver that fit right in there, and I pulled it out. And what's interesting is I'll put it back in here and I still have resistance. Still a pretty good amount of resistance. So my theory is correct. It's the seal, it's the tension of the seal. It's so tight, it works, it keeps the oil from coming out, but it has tension, and that's what really is giving me the shock absorbent action, not the plunger in the oil. And I'm going to put in the lighter shock oil, and I'm going to see how it works out. And I'm going to do that for both the rear shocks. Alright, so we're going to go with this 350 weight shock oil. This is the lighter of the two I have. It's definitely lighter than what was in here. This, let's see if I try to compare for you. here is this is the original shock oil. I don't know if you can tell or not, but it's real thick. It's almost like it's very close to grease. And this shock oil is like much lighter. So hopefully that makes a difference. So now we're going to fill it up. And I'm doing this with the plunger off because it's easier with the plungers off. Might as well take advantage of that. And it's actually taking a fair amount of it. I'm going to work the shaft now. Well, it shouldn't make a difference because the plunger's not on there. So it's not full. I left it somewhat, maybe a quarter of an inch below the surface. So now I'm going to put the plunger on. With the screw here. And this is going to be quite tedious. I'm going to spin it and hold it in place with my finger. And I think it's threaded. That worked. Now I'm going to get my tool and secure it. Oop, came off. Let's see if it works. Nope, the tool took it off. So I'm going to have to get it out the tool. Let me see why my magnet worked. Trying to suck it out with my magnet, and that worked. Alright. Alright, so let's try it again. Putting it in place. Yep. Watching this live, trial and error. I never did this before. And I'm going to try to spin it to get it threaded. This time I'm using pliers. Try to get the thread started with some needle nose pliers. And it's on there now. So now I can secure it with this tool. Okay, it's going on. Make sure I'm not cross-threading it. And it's tight. So now when I pull it, you can see it's actually working the oil. I think it's a little easier now. Hey, well, I'm going to put the top on it and see. I'm going to put a little bit more to fill it up. And I'm doing this with the plunger pushed in. If you do with the plunger out, it may fight itself. So now I'm going to put the top seal on. I'm going to try to put the top seal on. Hope you all can see. We'll pull the plunger a little bit. Now, let's sit it on like that. And now, I'm going to put the top cap on. Okay. It's tight now. Let's see what kind of action we have. And what do you know? Much lighter. Okay, so I discovered a lot here. The oil makes the difference. The lighter oil, I guess, lubricated that seal better, and now it's much better. But I got a little springy action here, so I'm going to see that springing action? Shock's not supposed to do that. It's supposed to go in and stay, have resistance, and come out and stay. And see, it's bouncing on both ends, which is not really desirable. I don't know. Let's see. But it's so much lighter. I'm going to leave it. Tighten it. Leave it. Oh yeah, it's much better. And we're going to do the other back one and see how the back does. Alright, so the rear shocks are on. And how do you think it worked out? Let's see. So just bouncing it by hand and comparing it to the front. See the difference? The front is so stiff, it takes time to come up. And the back, It's nice. Now, does it bounce? Now, that's exactly what I wanted. If you look at it, it absorbs the shock, but there's no bounce. So it's softer, and it doesn't bounce. And so I'm going to do the same thing to the front. Front doesn't bounce, but it's very stiff. So this is, in my opinion, this is the ideal that I was looking for in terms of my shock performance. So this is what they call shock tuning, at least on a budget.